Stefan has spoken about the monetary system. I want to say a few words about money itself, which is the basis for the monetary system. One of the big mistakes I think we've made in the social sciences is regarding for too long that money is the special purview of economics, of economists. We need to look at money in a much wider point of view than it's normally regarded. So my comments are really to look at money from a social perspective. What is money? Money is not a thing. Money has no inherent value of its own. Money is a social organization. I would say it's essentially a networking tool. It's a networking tool like language. It enables us to exchange value. It has no value in itself. It's a networking tool like the internet. Socially, in the evolution of society, money has played a tremendous role, and no matter how much we want to bash the system we have, I think it's important to recognize that the development of money, like the development of property, has been one of the ways in which individuality has empowered the individual, given him a mobility and a freedom that he otherwise would not have. In traditional societies without money, it's very difficult for people to change their status. It's very difficult to change their position. But we're in a society where you can forget birth, you can forget where a person comes from or what their parents were. If money comes, it gives access to social mobility. So money, no matter if we have problems with money, we should also understand that money has been a powerful instrument for the development of the society, even for democratization and human rights. Doesn't mean we don't have problems with it. It's important to realize money has no inherent value outside a social context. You can have all the money in the world if you're living on a desert island. It has absolutely zero utility for you. Or even if you're in society, if people don't believe that your money is real, if they think it's counterfeit, it has zero value. Everything depends on, it fosters human relationship. But we know that there's another side to it. Money's, because of this capacity for convertibility, money is that which enables us to convert any type of social power into other types of social power. If we have knowledge, which is a form of power, we can convert it into income. If we have political influence, we can convert it into money, or vice versa. If you have money, you can convert it into political influence. You can buy technology with it, or technology can be used to generate money. So money is the great marketplace for transfer and interconversion of one type of social power into another. So the problems we're having with money really boil down to how power is being used in the society. Money is not the problem. The problem is how power is distributed, and money is one of those ways. And money, as we know, through plutocracy, is driving political processes, just as political processes are determining who gets the money and how much, and who gets the benefits of the social processes. So these are all very basic general statements, but I think it's helpful to keep in mind that we're really dealing with, at a fundamental social level, of how society creates value or power and distributes that power. One of the ways in which money grows in value, one of the things that's mysterious about it for us is we see money tends to have the capacity to multiply itself. Well, other things multiply themselves. Knowledge multiplies themselves. Technological capacity multiplies themselves. Innovation, many things multiply themselves, but with money we can quantify it. And we wonder how come somebody who's got money is able to multiply it. Information multiplies itself. You can use it and create new information from it. Money is also a symbol. For us, it's not just a thing, but it's a symbol for so many other things. The Economist deals with the value of money as a symbol for products and services, or as a symbol for productive capacity. But we know that money can symbolize access to anything. As Thomas was saying, money becomes a source of prestige in itself. So if you've got money, you have prestige, you have power, you have influence, you have success, supposedly you have everything you want. Fundamental basis for money, that what it's symbolizing. Why is a currency like the U.S. currency very powerful? Or very valuable? It's reflecting, one, the military power of the society, the political influence of the society, the social or political stability of the society, the productive capacity of the society, certainly, but not only that, the educational system, the capacity for science and technology, innovation, the legal rights of people in the society, cultural values. It's a composite of all of these things. And this is important for us because if our goal is to create greater prosperity, greater welfare and well-being, producing things is not the only way we can create greater value. It's not the only way we can multiply the value of money. If we can increase trust in the society, we can multiply the value of money, the amount of money, and access to money, which essentially what the credit card system has done over the last 30 years. We've created trillions of dollars of additional money, not by inherently producing something, but by creating a system of trust where now the individual can be trusted irrespective of what his income is if he's got a good credit rating, irrespective of what his assets are. Just because he pays his bills on time. We have information that says if you give him money, he's going to repay it. So there are many ways in which we can create access to money and the effective power of money when we look at it in a much wider sense than thinking of money as generated by production and distribution of goods. So what we have as central banks, which Stefan was mentioning, what they're essentially doing is managing and limiting the way in which money is created under what is very, very largely a myth, that if they don't do that, the value of money will be lost because we all know there was an inflation in Weimar Germany after World War I, and hyperinflation is going to come and destroy the money systems of the world. And the real question is, how much money can we create in society without destroying the stability of the monetary system? And I think the short answer to that is it entirely depends on what you create the money for and how you utilize it. And it's a big topic, but I'd argue, just to be controversial, if we created enough money to give every man and woman in every society a higher education, the best education they could have, that is, if we invested it entirely in human resource development, it would not be inflationary. Rather, we would be growing the value of the whole society, the productivity of the society. There's a lot of more of myth and superstition related to money and the money system, and the central banks and the economists in the economic theory is the central purveyor of these myths, which are really intended to preserve the power of those who have the money. The interest is those who have the money should be able to multiply it, rather than money should be widely distributed. And I think it's really important to understand that we're dealing with a sociological phenomenon, not an economic phenomenon. The story I told yesterday morning of FDR saving the banking system was essentially saving 6,000 banks had failed within 3 years, and essentially he stopped that failure by doing one thing, creating trust where trust had been lost. Well, if we can create trust to restore a failing banking system, can we not create greater trust in the society that would create more real wealth? When I was growing up, you couldn't get a bank loan to go and get a degree in higher education. Today, in many societies, even in India, if you have an opportunity to go to a good university, get a higher degree, you can get money for it. Why? Because there's a trust that development of that human capital is really creating wealth in the society, and we'll be able to recover it. So when we look at the future of the society, we should be asking ourselves how we can enhance trust and create money in constructive ways that will support that. I've been working on a formula about what is really the value of money. What does the value of money really reflect? I'd say the value of money reflects the value of the human being in society. When the central bank is trying to fight inflation, there are many causes for inflation, but one of the underlying causes for inflation is that people who, at lower levels, who used to work for one meal a day or for just minimum subsistence wages, refuse to do so. They have a greater expectation and they demand more. The demand of people to earn more, which is called by the economists a source of inflation, I would say it's a source of human development. It's the person who values himself higher, and every society that's developed has developed because it has recognized the value of the human being and being willing to pay more for his time, labor, and so that he can live at a higher level. So I'm trying to say we need to relook at many of the concepts in money, including inflation, and really look at what is the fundamental basis on which they're based. If we say we want a human-centered economic system, then what's important and valuable is not money, it's human beings. And a system that really recognizes and gives value to human beings, that says everybody must have a minimum opportunity for employment, a minimum level of education, minimum level of health care, and so forth and so on, is really a system. We can create money to support all of those things, and the society will rise and be more developed. That's what's happened over time. So I've been just trying to go through and throw out a few provocative statements, but I've come back at the end to where Stefan was on the financial system. If we really want a human-centered system, I agree with his conclusion. We need to radically alter the money system. Creating multiple currencies is one way we can do that. But I think the way in which the use of money is rewarded is equally important. According to McKinsey, there's about 250 trillion in global financial assets. Stefan said only 3% of the money is actually being used in the real economy. That's an impressive figure. I was using a calculation of around only 20%. But either way, I think it proves the point. What do we have now is a global financial system that really encourage 80% of this money is being used simply to make more money. It's not to produce any tangible service to society. It doesn't produce goods. It doesn't produce services. It's simply looking for speculative returns. And we have a financial system whose primary responsibility is to preserve that 80% and help it get decent returns. The system is driven by those who have the wealth, and governments are tied into that system and draw on that money for their finance, for the investment. One single change of disincentivizing speculative investment, and we can easily define speculative, or simply define it as short-term investment that is not committed to any social purpose. If we simply introduced, it's not a new idea, of course, you're all familiar with, but it's an illustrative of how quickly and how dramatically we could make an impact. If we simply introduced a tax proportionate to the shortness of the investment time, and of course with computerized trading it's measured in milliseconds, and say the longer the investment, the lower the tax, we could radically change the way money's being used in the society, the incentives that are either there to invest it in people or invest it in the long term or invest it just simply for speculative returns. In order to do that, it's not simply a question of changing tax rates or something. It's a question of recognizing that underlying the system we have is a power structure and sources of power and forces of power that have a great vested interest in keeping things the way they are. My complaint is not about the people who have power and are trying to protect themselves. Right now, I think our target is the intellectual framework that is justifying that, that's putting a veil over this, that's preventing the public from understanding what's really going on, that are advocating a theoretical framework which is camouflaging the fact that what's really being distributed and controlled is social power rather than productive purposes. And that's one of the reasons why new economic theory is so important, to get some transparency and clarity about how the system works. Thank you.